March 8th, 2014. It's a date etched into the history of aviation. A Saturday morning that began with routine procedures at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and ended with the birth of the greatest mystery of the modern era. We live in a world of constant surveillance. Our phones track our steps. Satellites map every inch of the globe. Air traffic control monitors thousands of flights simultaneously. The idea that a massive, state-of-the-art Boeing 777 carrying 239 human beings could simply vanish into thin air seems impossible. It defies logic. It defies technology. And yet, that is exactly what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. For over a decade, this story has obsessed investigators, devastated families, and spawned countless theories. How does a plane that is 209 feet long and 60 feet tall just disappear? Today, we are going back to that night. We are going to look at the undisputed facts, the bizarre twists in the evidence, and the enduring questions that make MH370 a haunting puzzle with pieces that still don't fit together. The flight was scheduled as a red-eye from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Beijing, China. The aircraft was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the safest and most automated commercial airliners ever built. In the cockpit were two experienced pilots. The captain was 53-year-old Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran with over 18,000 flight hours. He was known as an aviation geek, someone who even built an elaborate flight simulator in his own home. His first officer was 27-year-old Fariq Abdul Hamid, who was nearing the end of his training on the 777. At 12:41 a.m. local time, MH370 took off into the dark, clear sky. For the first 40 minutes, everything was perfectly normal. The plane climbed to its assigned cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, heading northeast over the South China Sea toward Vietnam. There were routine radio check-ins. Nothing in the pilots' voices suggested stress, panic, or trouble. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane approached the edge of Malaysian airspace, air traffic control radioed the cockpit to hand them over to Ho Chi Minh City Control in Vietnam.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Those were the last words ever heard from the flight. Less than 2 minutes after that sign-off at 1:21 a.m., the plane went dark. Its transponder, the device that sends the plane's identity, altitude, and speed to air traffic control radar, was manually switched off. Immediately, MH370 vanished from civilian radar screens. To the controllers in Vietnam waiting for the check-in, the plane simply never arrived. Confusion reigned for hours. Airlines tried to contact the plane via text message and satellite phone but got no response. By dawn, it was clear something catastrophic had happened. The plane had just impossibly disappeared from existence. Where had it gone? How could this have possibly happened? The initial search focused exactly where it should have: the South China Sea, where the transponder stopped working. The world assumed a sudden catastrophic mechanical failure or perhaps a terror attack had brought the plane down instantly. But they were looking in the wrong ocean. Days later, the Malaysian government revealed shocking information that completely rewrote the narrative. Secret Malaysian military radar, which doesn't rely on the transponder, had tracked an unidentified aircraft at that exact time. This radar data showed that immediately after good night, MH370 did something incomprehensible. It made a sharp, aggressive turn to the left, a near 180-degree turn. It flew back over the Malay Peninsula, crossing the landmass it had just departed. It flew past the island of Penang and then turned northwest up the Strait of Malacca, heading out toward the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean. At 2:22 a.m., it flew beyond the range of military radar. This was not an accident. This was flight path required deliberate, skilled human input. Someone in that cockpit was flying the plane away from its destination and into oblivion. The realization that the plane had turned back was terrifying. It meant the plane flew for hours after it vanished from civilian radar. But where did it go? The Indian Ocean is one of the most remote places on Earth. It's deep, dark, and incredibly vast. Searching it without a target is impossible. This is where the story turns into a high-stakes detective novel involving complex mathematics. Even though the plane's main communications were off, the engines were still running. And those engines had a maintenance diagnostic system that automatically sent a simple ping, like a digital heartbeat, up to a satellite operated by the company Inmarsat every hour. These pings didn't contain GPS location data. They just said, essentially, "I'm still here." Inmarsat engineers realized they could analyze the timing of these pings. By measuring how long it took the signal to travel from the plane to the satellite, they could calculate the plane's distance from the satellite at that exact moment. They couldn't pinpoint a spot, but they could draw a giant circle on the globe, an arc, where the plane must have been during its final ping at 8:11 a.m. Kuala Lumpur time. That final arc stretched from Kazakhstan in Central Asia all the way down to the freezing, remote waters of the southern Indian Ocean near Antarctica. Because the plane had not been detected by any radar systems to the north, investigators concluded the plane must have taken the southern route. The data suggested that MH370 flew straight into the southern darkness for 6 hours until it ran out of fuel and crashed into the sea. The search shifted to a remote stretch of ocean, thousands of miles off the coast of Australia. It was the most expensive and technologically advanced search in aviation history. They scanned millions of square kilometers of the seafloor, dealing with underwater volcanoes and extreme depths. They found shipwrecks they didn't know existed, but they found no trace of the 777. The official underwater search was suspended in 2017. However, the ocean eventually gave something back. In July 2015, more than a year after the disappearance, a piece of airplane debris washed ashore on Réunion Island, a French territory off the coast of Africa, thousands of miles from the suspected crash site. It was a flaperon, a part of the wing used to control the aircraft. Serial numbers confirmed it was definitely from MH370. Over the next few years, more pieces were found by citizens on beaches in Mozambique, Tanzania, and Madagascar. These fragments were crucial. They proved the plane definitely crashed into the ocean, and ocean current modeling showed that the debris drifting to Africa was consistent with a crash site in the southern Indian Ocean. But the debris also deepened the mystery. Analysis of the flaperon suggested to some experts that it wasn't deployed for landing when it hit the water. This implies that no one was actively piloting the plane at the very end to perform a controlled ditching. The plane likely spiraled into the water at high speed after fuel exhaustion. So, where does that leave us? We know the what. The plane turned back and ended in the southern Indian Ocean. We don't know the why. The theories are numerous, but the evidence for any single one is frustratingly incomplete. The official Malaysian investigation report couldn't determine the cause, but stated that unlawful interference by a third party could not be ruled out. The most prominent theory among many Western experts centers on the pilot, Captain Zahari. They point to the complex flight path that avoided radar, suggesting intimate knowledge of the airspace. They point to data recovered from his home flight simulator that showed a flight path similar to the one taken into the Southern Ocean, drafted weeks before the event. The theory posits a murder-suicide mission, though his family and friends vehemently deny this, and the official report found no red flags in his personal life. Others suggest a catastrophic event, like a sudden fire or rapid decompression, that incapacitated the crew and passengers, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until the fuel ran dry. But this doesn't easily explain the deliberate transponder shutoff and the sharp turns performed afterward. More than a decade later, the disappearance of MH370 remains an open wound for the families of the 239 people on board. They are stuck in a perpetual state of ambiguous loss, without a crash site, without bodies, and without answers. Aviation is safer today because of MH370. Tracking standards have improved globally. But the fact remains, In the 21st century, a giant airliner and everyone aboard were lost. Until the main wreckage and the flight data recorders are found in that deep, dark ocean, MH370 will remain the greatest aviation mystery of our time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to comment down below any other mysteries I should make a video on.